Alright, fantasy matchup time now to celebrate Carl Froch, the international superstar, getting into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. I'm going to discuss a fantasy fight between Carl Froch and James Degale. Now, I want to apologise again for my voice. I'm very out of breath and being very unwell. I can literally hardly breathe when I'm doing these videos at the moment, but I'm going to keep cranking them out. Now, I remember 2013 when Froch had signed to fight George Groves, and I had said that George Groves is the hardest hitter Froch has faced, and that he's going to hurt Froch a lot. He will drop him at some point in the fight, and he might actually stop him. And I had all these donuts on Facebook saying there's no chance of that happening. He doesn't have the power. Froch has an iron chin. And then in the first round, Carl Froch went down. Now, my official prediction for that fight was for George Groves to get off to a flying start, for him to fade, and essentially nick a points win at the end. So for Froch to not close the gap on the scorecards enough by the end of the fight. Now, I agree the ninth round where it was stopped was premature, but actually I don't think George Groves was going to get out of the situation, and it came down to, I actually made a video about it, but I never uploaded it because I was like, what was I, 17 or something? I was just too shy to go on YouTube and do it. But one of the problems I had with George Groves was he'd move his head first, then his feet for his defence. And when you haven't got the best reflexes in the world, George Groves had decent reflexes, but not great for his upper body. Somebody like Carl Froch, who rushes in with his shots, is still going to catch you a little bit. You look at Andre Ward, he had a very good control of the distance. He didn't really need to move his head much to evade Carl Froch. It was about just keeping control of distance. Now, in terms of Froch versus James Degale, one of the things about James Degale is he was the same height or a bit taller than Froch. He seemingly had longer arms, and Carl Froch very rarely faced anyone with longer arms than him. I'm not sure if he ever did. And he would glide around the ring. He would move his feet first, which was really important because Froch isn't an out-and-out pressure fighter. He can't sustain an attack unless you stay still or if he pins you. If you move away, he'll fall off balance, very much like David Hay, but actually in some ways worse. So I feel James Degale would have found it very, very easy to hit Carl Froch, and probably would have marked up Carl Froch's face quite badly. But one of the issues I have with Degale is he's so limp. His punches were, they were just limp as anything. It was kind of like Joe Kawasaki, but worse. And something I didn't factor in at the time, because at the time I was picking James Degale to win quite handily, is Carl Froch's political sway. Now, if you watch the first George Groves fight, there are rounds in that sixth round, in those first six, that you could give to Carl Froch. But at the time, lots of people were disgraced because I think the judges gave it 4 to Groves, 2 to Froch. And people were disgraced by that. They felt like Groves won all 6 of the first 6. But the thing is about Carl Froch is what he understands is he needs to keep his jab pumping out. And if he's at a distance, it really looks like he's dominating the fight. If you look at the second Kessler fight, it's really quite hard to give rounds to Kessler because if 30 jabs are coming your way in the space of a minute, it doesn't matter how keen your eye is, it will look like 1/3 of them at least landed. So this is something about Carl Froch, and I feel like it's why he often got controversial decisions, was less because of political sway and more because of his style. The fact that he was, be at long range, pumping out a jab, and it would look like those jabs are coming through, and oftentimes they were, and it wasn't a weak jab. If you caught 5-10 of them in a round, your face would get very marked up. I don't think I don't think James Degale had the physical strength to push Froch around like Groves did for the first few rounds. And even then, I only feel like that happened because George Groves had hurt Cole Froch quite badly early on. So I don't think he'd have been able to push him around and physically dominate him like Andre Ward did. But I do think James Degale would have had very flashy combinations that would have caught the judge's eyes. Another thing about James Degale is if he wanted to stay at long range, he has superior movement, and he would have been able to jab with Cole Froch. But the problem is, he wasn't that consistent of a jabber at long range. He sort of stayed in the middle. There's a very good interview of Adam Booth after the Groves versus Degale fight, where he described James Degale as having a blender where he would dominate in the middle range. I just feel like, with all these things considered, I think it would be a typical Cole Froch fight where he doesn't look good. Lots of people feel like he lost, but he'll nick a victory. One of the judges will have it by a ridiculous margin for him, and he'll be absolutely smug about it and won't stop mentioning it. And that's how I think it would have gone. I think it would have been a typical Cole Froch fight. I don't think it would have been like Andre Ward, where Froch really couldn't get going at all because James Degale didn't have that kind of excessive movement. I think a lot of people would have had Cole Froch losing, but you could make a case for Froch winning, and as a result, Froch would have won by quite a margin, and for his whole life he wouldn't stop mentioning it. And God forbid if he dropped James Degale or knocked him out and made him sit on his leg like he did to George Groves. It's a shame the fight never happened. I'd have liked to have seen it, but I understand why Cole Froch didn't take it. And nowadays, actually, he does say about Joe Calzaghe, now that he was in the same position as Joe Calzaghe, he understands why Joe Calzaghe never fought him. But that's what I think of that fight. What do you think? How do you think it would have gone? I personally also think James Degale was an underachiever because he never swapped coaches. He stayed in his comfort zone and never learnt anything. He struggled with people he should have wiped out, like Lucien Butte. He struggled with him. Yeah, Badou Jack was a very good fighter, but I feel like he should have had the beating of Badou Jack had he learnt some more things. I think he was way more talented than Jack. And Caleb Truax, I know he was shot by the time he fought Caleb Truax and Chris Eubank Jr., but if you look at those fights, he was very one-dimensional. James Degale, he didn't have many wrinkles to his game. It was just sort of flashy hand speed and decent balance, and the fact that he was long-limbed made it hard for him to be hit. But tell me what you think. Like the video. Hopefully my video has become high quality soon. I do apologise, I've had tonsillitis so much. Sinus infections, it's just cold and flu season. I can hardly talk here. But you have yourself a good day. Thank you.